Hi everyone, it's Michelle here. I want to talk to you about your emergency preparedness plans. Now, I know that when we got word of the pandemic, a lot of you were not sure what to do. And so, one of the key things that you have to remember is that you have to be prepared in everything, particularly when you own a business that deals with servicing children. Um, and so I want to give you some things and some tips on how to be prepared in an emergency. And so your first thing you want to do is you want to plan. Now I'm going to show you things that I have. And I have a large bag that I keep um, in an area where I can just go ahead and grab it if I have to leave the house. Sometimes I put it in my trunk of my car. You can put it in your minivan. And so I keep just some activity books for the children, just in case I need it. I keep snacks. I have water. I have an entire case of water, just in case. And you want to change that out probably every 6 months. And I have a blanket here. I have a smaller blanket for some of the smaller children, but I also have a larger blanket that I keep, and I have a change of clothes. And I also have first aid kit, and I have my emergency preparedness manual in there and a lot of information on the children so that if I need it, I can help people to um, see who is with me, who may not be with me, or whatever the case. And then I have a smaller bag where I also keep another fire drill and emergency preparedness manual. And I have my first aid kit in here as well, which you don't have to have a lot of stuff in your emergency, your first aid kit. You can keep like a lot of the basic things in there. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of things. And I usually take this smaller bag, which has the same thing as the bigger bag. I will take that even outside when I go in the backyard because you never know what may happen. One of the children may get hurt. Uh, you may have to implement one of your procedures that you've put in place if you see an intruder or if there's any type of emergency that may happen. And so you want to be prepared for that. So I also have a visitor sign-in binder, and whenever somebody comes in, I have them sign in. And so I know what time they've come in, the reason they're here, where they're from, and so that if I need to go back and take a look at that, I can do that. I also have a bigger binder with my fire drill and emergency preparedness manual, and I keep that on hand. I have one in one of my cubbies, which is labeled first aid kit. And so the staff know and I know where to look in this binder for some or any type of procedure that I need to know. And so what I keep in here is I keep my evacuation plan. And so that tells 2 ways of getting out of the house, and where we're going to go or where we need to stand. And I also keep one on my wall. I also have my emergency telephone numbers. So that would be your police, your fire, your poison control. I keep information, quick information on the children I care for. I also have a fire drill evacuation log. And so you want to do those once a month. And then I also have my lockdown and shelter in place log. And then I have my emergency procedures and emergency medical dental procedure. I've even made a few changes there. If the child requires immediate medical attention, what to do. So you want to think of everything that you can possibly or that could possibly happen and prepare a procedure for it. Emergency fire procedure, tornado, intruder or dangerous adult, a blizzard, severe winter weather, lightning, missing or abducted children, a power failure, environmental or outdoor chemical spill, indoor chemical spill, bomb threat, earthquake, and just some general emergency procedure guidelines. And so those will be very important when you are making your plan. You may want to add some other things here for depending on where you live and what your area is. So you may also want to do one for excessive heat, anything like that. So you have to really think of what's going on in your area. And then I keep all the paperwork for my children that I care for in here. If I need to go to the hospital for any reason, I have all of this documentation. I also have a copy of my license, registration, my insurance, and also a copy of my sticker on my car. And so you want to have those things in place as well. We do a lot of traveling. We go to a lot of events outside of the family childcare setting. We go to the library. And so you need to have those things with you so that you will be prepared for whatever happens. And so some other things that I've also done is to prepare your health practical skills. And what we have to do is we have to have our first aid CPR training and be certified in that. And so that is always good to have, whether you're a parent, whether you care for children in the child care setting, even as teachers, it is always good to be prepared with your first aid training. And you should also know how to perform seizure first aid, the Heimlich maneuver, even a back blow to an infant. I had to do that at one point, and it was a very scary thing, but because I had the knowledge, I was able to act fast, and the baby was okay. You also want to, of course, learn how to wash your hands in childcare. I think we wash our hands probably about 1,000 times a day, and so that is something that we're constantly doing. And so learning how to do it properly is key. And you also want to have signs around your childcare so that your staff and that even you can be reminded of hand washing. There's all types of signs you can have for the proper way to wash your hands. And also even afterwards when you're drying and you're walking out of a place, those steps are really important as well. And you also want to be careful if you're using a portable generator. They can be dangerous if they're not handled carefully and if they're not set up properly. And so just some quick tips you want to just conduct a little self-assessment of things that are going on. If you care for somebody with a disability, you need to know what to do and the specific things of what to do for that person or that child. Make sure you have durable equipment. Make contaminated water safe to drink. You need to learn how to do that. And then learning how to take care of wounds, cleaning up mold. And then there's also the emotional health of going through any type of emergency. So the social emotional piece is very, very important, and you want to make sure that you have support and that those that you care for have support or access to that support as well. And so I got the pandemic flu, a planning guide for educators. And so this tells you what the flu is. It also tells you the differences between a seasonal flu and the pandemic flu, and the different severities for each. and how it spreads. And then there's also measures to limit the spread of flu, and I think that is the stage that we're at right now, where we are learning how to do infection control and learning what to do, because we know some of the signs and we know what to do in case of that. And so we're practicing that with your hand, your cough, and your sneezing hygiene, and then your social distancing. And then there are some basic components of the pandemic planning that are really important, and they have to do with every district having a plan. And so that would be your schools, your centers, everyone. And then depending on what's going on, and now we're in the pandemic flu, and so you should have a plan in place for that. And then the different phases, and here there are 4 phases of an emergency management planning. When you have your mitigation and prevention, then you have your preparedness, response, and then your recovery. And we'll talk a little bit about recovery in a while. And then your plans should be practiced on a regular basis. And so you saw that I had a schedule of when I would do my fire drills and all of those types of things. They're very important. That way the children know what to do, where to go, nobody's panicking, and we're not trying to scammer to figure out what to do. And so all those need to be communicated even to your parents. That is very, very important. And you also should be continually reviewing those things. And then there's an action plan template. And then I also have in my binder a childcare and preschool and pandemic planning checklist. And so this is just a checklist of some things that you want to have in place. All right, so we also want to talk about the childcare and preschool pandemic influenza planning checklist. And this checklist is really important as well. Now we are continuing from talking about our emergency preparedness plan. And so you want to have a planning and coordination. And this is just what you can do: completed, in progress, and not started yet. And so this will get you started in your emergency planning. And these are just some of the things that you may want to do. And so a lot of the things it says, form a committee of staff members and partners. And so in a family childcare setting, it's very small. And so you'll probably be planning yourself, maybe with another staff person, or you can get together with someone else, another family childcare provider, or even a childcare center, and plan together. And so that you can each check each other to make sure that you have a lot of things you need in place. You know, a plan A, a plan B. Then you want to have your student learning and program operations. So you want to plan how you would deal with program closings, staff absences, and gaps in student learning. You also want to make sure you plan ways to help your families to continue their child's learning if your child care program or preschool family childcare is closed. So that means giving parents some things that they may need, like I talked about in another video that I did about preparing the backpack and filling that backpack with all the types of things that they will need while they are home before we open again. And then you want to plan ways to continue basic functions if your program closed. So like continue meeting payroll, keeping in touch with your staff, and of course your families. And then you want to do your infection control policies. So what are you going to do if you happen to have someone who is infected with something, a teacher, a staff, or your children? So you need a plan in place for that, and you need to keep a good supply of things that will help you control the spread of infection. And so that will become key in a lot of the things that you encounter. And I know I have a sick and illness policy, and so you want to create one of those so that your parents will know when to bring a child, when not to bring a child, and you want to make it simple, but you also want to let them know exactly what does the flu look like, what does pink eye look like, what is the temperature that you're going to allow children to come in and not come in. And I'll show you in a little bit what things to look for as we're going through this pandemic. And then you want to communication planning. That is key. And so you want to have a plan for keeping in touch with your staff members, your students, your families. I did a video on just a reading lesson and for staff, so that they can, that is just one way of keeping in touch with your students. However you contact your parents, through email, through text messaging, all those things are very, very important for letting parents know what it is that you're doing. And so this is a sign that I have here. We need your assistance in helping to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Our priority is protecting the health of our children, families, and youth in care. And so this just gives you a lot of the ways that you can help with not spreading the virus. And then that's just a copy. All right, and so here is our final childcare emergency checklist. And I like to make sure that I have at least a couple of them. One, so that I'll know what I'm doing, what stage I'm in, and what I need to do. And so this is has different components of a checklist, in that it will tell you specifically the questions you need to ask yourself. And so checklist A is direction and control of your operations. So who is in charge of what? And that needs to be in your plan as well. So your checklist B, your protective actions. You know, you need to know what is it that you're going to be doing depending on whatever emergency is going on, a tornado, an intruder, and everyone needs to know what their role is in the emergency. You know, are you going to do an immediate evacuation or what? And that becomes very, very important as well. Shelter in place, that is also important. To figure out what are you going to do to ensure that your designated shelter areas are ready to receive and shelter children and staff. So you need to know if there's a place that you're going to go, make sure that place is still there. Make sure that it is accessible for you to go in an emergency. All right, and your evacuation to relocation facility, we talked about that. Your emergency support functions, so your communications, your building security, what they call here your go kits. And your go kits are just what we talked about with your bag and what you're going to have in them, especially if you have children who have medical needs. If they use an EpiPen, that is critical for you to have. Make sure the parents have a EpiPen at home, but you also have one in your childcare. So that you won't have any problems with, oh, I forgot it, or I don't have it. And so, because that is a matter of life and death. All right. And so I hope this helps you in your emergency planning. And let me know what you're doing for your emergency preparedness.